Hey guys, it's Nik the Booksmith. Welcome back, welcome back. Today, we're going to get our hands dirty again. But I will wear gloves this time. We'll pick out one of these pair. And I will be doing a random craft project that I wanted to do. And I will put the links down below so that you can watch a real person, or not a real person, but you can watch somebody who I learned from do it, because I won't be talking about the craft. I'll just be doing the craft and telling you a story. Today we have another episode of Craft and Crime, or maybe it's more like CraftTime mysteries. A mystery is always a mystery until it isn't. But not all mysteries end up being crimes, right? I mean, people go missing and things disappear, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a crime, right? Who knows where your socks go in the dryer? Maybe the Mona Lisa will end up there one day in that vortex behind your clothes dryer. Would it be a crime? I don't know. That's my quandary. So maybe it's more of a craft time mystery story. How's that? For just a brief explanation so that you know what's going on, I'm going to be making an anthotype. So that's what I'm doing today. Okay, let's get into our story while I make a mess. Today's story is about Kenia Monge. She's 19 years old and lives in Aurora, Colorado. At this time, she has moved out of her parents' house and has gotten an apartment with her boyfriend, Louis. Before this, she lived with her mom and stepdad, Tony Lee. She just graduated from high school and is enrolling into a community college nearby to study. She hasn't decided either criminology or TV broadcasting. Kenia was extremely bright and well-loved. People were drawn to her, and she made friends very easily. She'd never been in trouble with the law and was thought of as a very responsible and level-headed person. She got good grades in school, which is amazing in one aspect, is that she's only been in the United States for 7 years. And when she moved to the United States from Honduras at the age of 12, she could not speak any English at all. But she has excelled not only at learning English, but mastering English and anything else that she put her mind to. On March 31st, 2011, she and her friends decide to go out on the town for a girls' night to a couple of nightclubs. She's with a couple of her friends, and she's going to be meeting her best friends down at the nightclub. Now remember, she's 19 years old, and her friends are also underage. So how are they going to be getting drinks at a nightclub, you might ask? Well, they have some fake IDs, and so that's what they're going to try to use to get into the nightclub so that they can get their dance on. And kids, don't ever do that. Nothing good ever comes from using a fake ID. Just take my word on that. Just don't do it. She and her two acquaintances head on down to a nightclub called Lavish. Her best friends are already in the club, and she and the two other girls that she's with are waiting in line to show the bouncer their IDs. The bouncer takes one look at their IDs and just shakes his head and says, no, I don't think so. So now she and her two friends are stuck outside this club while her best friends are inside. Not to be deterred, the three head down to another nightclub called the 24K Club. The visually impaired bouncer at this club just unhooks that satin rope and lets them right in. Let the party commence. They get their drinks, they start dancing, and are having a great time. Now remember, it is important to note that these two friends that she's with, since they are not her close besties, they're really not aware of what would be out of the ordinary behavior for any of them because they've never really been out clubbing with each other before. This becomes an important point when just after midnight, the two girls are getting ready to leave the nightclub and they can't find Kenia. There are some differing reports about what exactly happened. Either she went to the bathroom and never came back to the table, or she went to dance with somebody and never came back to the table. The alarming thing is that she seemingly has left the club, taken off, but she left her phone and her purse behind at the table. Because these two girls aren't really aware of what her quote-unquote nightclub behavior would be, they just figured maybe she went home with somebody and that they would get her phone and her purse tomorrow when everybody's sobered up. So they scoop up her things and they take off and go home. Early the next morning, which is April the 1st, Kenia's boyfriend Lewis is frantic. He's worried because, one, Kenia never came home the night before, and she's not answering any of his calls or texts. He calls her little sister, Kim, to see if maybe she has heard from Kenia. But Kim has not heard from Kenia. She calls their parents, who immediately also start to freak out, and they both come home from work immediately. That afternoon, the two girls that Kenia was with the night before drop by her apartment where Lewis, her boyfriend, is to drop off her phone and purse. At this point, Lewis really begins to freak out because why in the world would she leave her phone and purse behind? What's happened? So he and her stepdad, Tony, start questioning these girls. What happened? Tell us what went on. And the only information that they have is, you know what, we were dancing and we came back to the table and because it was time to go, the club was going to be closing down. We couldn't find Kenia. She wasn't anywhere in the club. So we just grabbed up her stuff so nobody would take it and we figured we'd get it back to her today, but we haven't seen her. This really sets off the alarm bells. Even though Tony is not Kenia's biological dad, he is daddy in every sense of the word. And he grabs up Kenia's phone and starts searching through it to see if maybe he can see some texts or calls that would give them a clue as to where she could be. There are a lot of calls and texts from her boyfriend, from her sister, but one text really stands out. It comes from a number that is not saved in her contacts list, and it goes a little something like this. Hey, this is Travis. The guy who gave you a ride last night? White creeper van. Did you get home okay? Tony calls this number repeatedly, but nobody answers. The next day, Travis Forbes, who Tony had been trying to get in touch with, finally calls back. He said he'd seen Kenia on the street outside the 24K Club around 2:30. He asked her if she needed a ride, and she said yes. Then Kenia said that she wanted to buy some cigarettes. Could they go by a gas station? Now, remember, she doesn't have her purse. So how she's going to buy cigarettes, I have no idea. But they stop at a gas station and it happens to be closed. Travis said that Kenia saw a man standing outside smoking. She said that she knew him. His name was Dan. And she hopped out of the van and she went over and she started speaking Spanish with Dan. Dan gave her a cigarette. They smoked a cigarette. And then Dan said, "Don't worry, I'll get her home safe." Travis said Kenia looked like she knew this guy and she was comfortable. So he said okay and just went on home. None of this sounded like something that Kenia would do. So Travis suggests that they meet at the gas station where he had last seen Kenia. At this point, Tony is willing to try anything. He said, "Yes, I will meet you down there. I'm getting in the car right now." Tony hangs up the phone and he grabs his 9mm and his keys. And Colorado is an open carry state, so as long as you have a permit, it is perfectly legal to carry a firearm. But Kenia's mom, Maria, she doesn't know what kind of situation he's walking into, and it's really making her nervous. As soon as he walks out the door, Maria calls the police department, gives them the rundown, and asks please that they send an officer over to the gas station to make sure that everything goes okay. They say, yes, ma'am. A 9mm, you got it. We're sending an officer over. By the time Tony gets to the gas station, the officer was already there talking with Travis. And Travis, he just looked like a regular guy. He didn't look scary. He didn't look violent. He wasn't a big burly guy. He seemed eager to help. He seemed sorry that he didn't see Kenia home. He feels really, really bad about this situation. Both Tony and the officer are questioning this story. It doesn't sound right, but they really have no evidence to prove otherwise. By Monday, April the 4th, 72 hours has passed, and now Kenia can be deemed a missing person and the investigation finally begins. Family is passing out missing persons flyers and searching everywhere they think that she could be. On April 5th, a woman by the name of Monica Poole goes to the police department to show them some surveillance footage from her bakery. She owns Debbie's Bakery and Cafe, and this is where Travis Forbes, the guy from the white creeper van, his words, not mine, rents a space to bake his gluten-free granola bars that he calls Forbies, and he sells these to businesses around town. You can see Travis in this footage, and then Travis turns the cameras off, which, I don't know about you, but that just doesn't seem right. Why would you turn surveillance cameras off? What do you have to hide? Another business owner would say that Travis was cleaning a large white cooler in the back of his van in the alley behind the bakery. The next day, April the 6th, Travis is brought into the Denver police station for a formal interview. He repeats the story he told her stepdad and police officer at the gas station, and added that after he left the gas station, he went to his girlfriend, Carrie Humphrey's house between 3 and 3:30, and then he had to get up at 8:30 to go to work on April the 1st. In the following days, as more clues begin to surface, Travis Forbes can't seem to keep his mouth shut.
It's been 2 weeks, and nobody's heard from her. There's been no trace of her. It's surreal. I don't even know what to think of it.
Since you're a person of interest, let me ask you this. Did you do something with her?
No.
Did you kidnap her?
No.
Did you sexually assault her?
I did not.
Did you murder her?
I did not. Man, I'm sorry that I was indifferent, that I didn't think anything. She was gonna disappear. What's her name? Kenia, yeah.
We're digging holes here, Travis. We're digging holes. During this time, Travis is still going to work delivering granola bars. Monica, the bakery owner, hears Travis talking about how now he's going to have to change his name and leave the country because, quote, that girl ruined my life, unquote. Soon after, Travis borrows an ex-girlfriend's car and leaves town. He's gone, and nobody can find him. On May the 4th, Travis is arrested in Austin, Texas, under suspicion of car theft. Not only could the police not find him, but his ex-girlfriend couldn't get a hold of him either, so she reported her car stolen. This is just enough to get Travis extradited back to Colorado. So on June 30th, he is back in Colorado, but things are looking up for Travis because his ex-girlfriend drops the car theft charges, and so Travis is released from jail. At this point, he goes to live in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is where his dad lives and his grandparents, and he crashes at his grandparents' house. Travis's behavior continues to become more and more erratic. Just a few days after coming back to Colorado, the evening of July the 4th, Travis goes out on the town. That same night, a woman named Lydia Tillman is walking home after watching the fireworks display in downtown Fort Collins, but she doesn't realize that she's being followed. When she unlocks her apartment door, Travis Forbes pushes Lydia inside the apartment from behind and slams the door behind him. This is when he viciously beats and assaults her. After the attack, he pours bleach on her, sets the apartment on fire, and takes off. Lydia forces her broken body to move, and she gets to an open window where she jumps from the second story down to the ground to escape the fire. Thankfully, the fire department was already on scene and she is transported to the hospital. But because of her severe injuries, she suffers a massive stroke, and the doctors put her into an induced coma where she remains for 5 weeks. A few days later, Fort Collins detective Jacqueline Shackley contacts Detective Groulet, who is in charge of Kenia's case in Denver. She knew that they had been contacted by the Denver police to keep on the watch out for this suspicious man, which happened to be Travis. And after they spoke, Detective Groulet was convinced that Lydia's attack was the work of Travis Forbes. Fort Collins and Denver police departments get together to form a surveillance team to keep an eye on Travis Forbes. And it's not very long before Travis gives them something to look at. 3 days later, on July the 10th, officers are watching as Travis approaches a woman in downtown Fort Collins. He's chatting this girl up and they begin to walk off together. So one of the officers breaks away from the surveillance team, and without giving them away, he approaches Travis and begins to ask him questions. Visibly nervous, he tells the officer that his name is Travis Kennedy, but that he doesn't have any ID on him and he can't remember his address. By this time, the woman that Travis had been talking to was gone, so they let him go. 20 minutes later, he shows back up on the street wearing a different t-shirt and a hat. Good job, Travis. Master of disguise, buddy. He starts stalking around the bars, and a woman that exits the bar by herself seems like she is intoxicated and is probably walking home for the evening, and Travis starts following her. At this point, the officers cannot let Travis go, and at around 3 o'clock in the morning, they arrest him for giving a false name to the police. Of course, this is a misdemeanor, and he's going to be able to make bond in less than 24 hours. The next day, July the 11th at 10:30 at night, Travis is literally minutes away from posting bond when forensic investigators who had been working tirelessly to analyze DNA found underneath Lydia's fingernails get a match. This match is to Travis Forbes. He's rebooked at the jail in Fort Collins on suspicion of attempted murder, sexual assault, and arson. On August the 26th, Detective Groulet goes to Fort Collins to interview Travis about Kenia's disappearance. Right off the bat, Travis says, "I'll tell you everything, but I want a deal." Detective Groulet is a little weary at this point, and he's like, what do you want? And Travis says, "I'll tell you everything. I just don't want to be labeled as a sex offender when I go to prison." So the agreement is reached, and Travis confesses to murdering Kenia Monge. He says he and a friend had seen Kenia alone near the 24K club talking to a homeless guy and asked her if she needed help getting home. So the three of them got into Travis's van. After dropping his friend off at his apartment, Kenia passes out in the van. Travis pulls over the van and, being the opportunistic douchebag that he is, takes this chance to try to assault Kenia. But she wakes up and starts fighting him, and this is when he strangles her. He places her in that large white cooler that he was caught on tape wheeling into the walk-in freezer at Debbie's Bakery. Then when he figures out what he wants to do with her body, he takes the cooler back out to the van and he drives to a little town called Keensburg. He digs a shallow grave under a grove of cottonwood trees near Interstate 76. On September 7th, Kenia's remains are recovered. 3 weeks later, Travis pleads guilty to the first-degree murder of Kenia Monge during his advisement hearing. He is sentenced quickly thereafter to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thank goodness. He also pled guilty to the attempted murder of Lydia Tillman. As for Kenia, her family established the Kenia Monge Foundation. The foundation provides support to the families of victims of violent crime and families of missing victims with the emotional, physical, and financial support they need in order to survive the tragic event. Well, that is it for this story today and my craft project, which I think turned out pretty cool. There is a link below to the video where I learned this technique if you want to learn more particulars. Thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you really, really soon in the next video. Bye, guys.